So first of all, thank you all so much for taking the time to join me today. I do have my setting on spotlight mode, so I can only see the people that are talking, just so you know, but I will share my screen. We'll go through a bit of housekeeping first. So first of all, I'm Nicky. I'm Nicky Mori. I'm the Senior HR Consultant at Bespoke HR. And just to go through some housekeeping. So I can see that you're all muted, so thank you so much for that. It would just be really helpful if you could remain muted just while we record this session. What I could ask you to do is, as I'm going through, because I will be sharing my screen and therefore I'll be only able to see kind of my presentation that I'm going to be doing for you. If you can write any questions in the comments box, and that's on the bottom, probably on the right hand side of your screen, there's a comments box. If you can just put your questions in there as we go, at the end of the session, between myself and Emma, we'll make sure that those questions are answered. But also, if you have anything when you come out of the session and you think, oh, actually, what about this? Or could we do this? Or have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, reach out to your, if you've got a bespoke HR consultant that you work with, please just reach out to us and we'll definitely be able to help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen in a second. That will then mean that I can't see anyone. So I will be kind of talking at my screen to a certain extent. But as I said, just at the end of the session, we'll go through the questions and we'll go from there. So let me get my screen shared for you now. Emma, if you can just, when I've done it, let me know that you can definitely see that. That'd be helpful. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. So in this Lunch and Learn today, the session's all about how HR can help build your succession within 2023. So that's the topic that we're going to cover today. I'm going to go through some examples. I'm going to go through kind of how I would think about it and just a bit of kind of hopefully hints and tips for you of how, from a HR perspective, you can go and maybe start to put together what that strategy might look like to support your business objectives. First of all, I thought it was important just to give you a little bit of my backstory. Some of you may know this. So I studied licensed retail and hospitality at Bournemouth University. During that time, I was able to work within the racecourse and kind of sports and leisure side of Compass Group, and used to run around the country working in all of the big race groups, in the stadia, in any of the big kind of big events that happen, like the Brits and all of those kind of things. So I've always worked with people, and it was very clear to me from a very early age and very early on in my career that actually it was the people sector that I wanted to get into. So first of all, started in recruitment, then built up into that HR piece. And actually the recruitment piece I enjoyed, but I wanted to see that employee journey go the whole way through. And that's what I was lacking by just being in recruitment. So that's where I did my CIPD and qualified, and then started working my way up. I started as a recruitment and HR manager in London. I was then given the opportunity to work as a HR director for a boutique gastro pub, and also opened kind of 4 very big venues for them in central London, which I'm still very, very proud of, because they were no mean feat, as you can imagine. And then before joining Bespoke HR, I was working as National Head of People for Jamie Oliver. So what that involved is looking after, I had a team of 12 with me, looking after every single Jamie's Italian, Barbacoa and Jamie's 15 across the country. So that was in all aspects of people. So that was L&D, all of the L&D and training aspects, all the analytical side of it, engagement, retention and incentives, and then also the HR business partner side of things as well. I then joined Bespoke HR nearly 4 years ago now. So that's my story and where I've come from. So first of all, I thought it was important just to look at what exactly strategic HR is and what it means. So it can be deemed as strategic HR management or a people strategy. I'll refer to it as kind of both elements throughout this presentation. But what it is, and without kind of reading from the screen, but I want to kind of really pin on some words in this, is about creating coherent planned framework for employees to be hired, managed, developed in ways that support organizations' long-term goals. So it's making sure that what our people are doing, how we're recruiting, how we're training, and how we're developing supports what the business trajectory is. So let's say we have an opportunity to increase our office space or to increase a product or introduce a new product to the business. Do we have the support and the people to be able to do that? It helps ensure that various aspects of people management work together to drive the behaviour and climate needed to create value and meet performance targets. That's all about having the right people in the right place. We can have the targets, business leaders can put the business objectives together, but actually, do we have the people that can do it? Without people, we don't have a business. And it focuses on long-term people issues, matching resources to future needs, large-scale concerns about structure, quality, culture, values, and commitment. So within strategic HR and having a people strategy, it allows you to attach to the business objective. The most important thing for me is in creating that business objective is actually understanding what the business objective is in the first place. So if you're aware that the business wants to launch a new product, therefore you'll be increasing a team of 20, the products will go live to consumer mid of this year. Actually, what does that look like? And then our strategy should be surrounding supporting that, because the business objective is the successful delivery of that project. We need to make sure that we're ready to be able to deliver that. And what strategic HR means is that we're not on a back foot, that we're able to project what we need to do, we're able to support the business effectively, but also it gives us a great opportunity to review our HR processes and procedures as well. So what I thought it would be helpful to do today is actually use a example business objective, which I've changed some of the detail in here, but this is kind of a real life example that I've recently been working on with one of my clients at the moment. So the example business objective, which I was given by the MD of the business, and this was a restaurant group in central London, was to increase restaurant profitability and efficiencies, increase spend per head while reducing operating expenses and depleting stock. So he's obviously given the finer detail of what that means and what he is expecting his leadership team to deliver. That's improving average spend to £45 per head, achieving a beverage mix of food and beverage of 40/60, a staff cost of 34, with 3% of that being in head office, the GP after wages of 40%, and reducing stock and reducing SKUs. In order for then, if we look at it like this, in order for the business then to achieve this objective, it is vital that we have the correct strategy to be able to deliver that. So from understanding this, what I would now do is take away some of the key elements from this. So how can we influence and affect this objective? So we're increasing profitability, we're looking at efficiencies, we're increasing spend per head and reducing operating expenses. So the first thing that springs to mind for me is that recruitment piece. In order to increase profitability, increase efficiency, increase spend per head, we need to have the right people in the right place. As we are all aware as HR professionals, there is a recruitment crisis going on across all sectors at the moment, especially within hospitality. It's very, very difficult in hospitality for my clients at the moment with that, but actually across the board, with it being very much an employees market, the cost of living crisis going up, the hybrid working changing, there's lots of things changing for the employees, which are making employees think about what their future looks like within businesses. So having a recruitment strategy and a timeline to support the crisis there means that we're focusing on attracting talent for the business to deliver. And what I mean by attracting talent is the right talent. We can put an advert out and get 20, 30 responses, depending on the role, sometimes as little as 7. However, are we looking in the right places? Are we thinking about it in the right way? So that would be the first thing that I would think. That recruitment, right people in the right place. The efficiencies in the business. So that efficiency within that big business objective was looking at profitability and efficiencies, but also operating expenses, making that efficient. There is a lot within HR that we can think about being more efficient, whether that's the onboarding process, offboarding process, the recruitment process, and just how we communicate in terms of how slick we are and what we do. But there also efficiencies in business is having the right people in the right place. And that's to deliver effectively, efficiently, but also for productivity. If you've got engaged, happy people that know what they're doing, that are ingrained in the culture, then efficiencies will naturally be there. How we can support that is making sure that we retain those people and keeping those people within the business. A clear focus on retention of our current teams. We need to keep our teams. The people that are working for us are the most experienced people within your business. And the business objective, which the MDs and leaders of the business will create, is for these teams to deliver. So we need them to be here to deliver. And part of our HR strategy needs to, how can we make sure that our people stay? What do we need to do to keep them within our business? And then the final part, which I would consider, is that training piece. The business objective talks about reducing operating expenses and depleting existing stock, increasing restaurant profitability. Do we know that our managers know what that means and what's expected of them? Is there a need for some commercial awareness training? Is there need for introducing a training which is looking at managing costs and rotas effectively? What we can't do and what we shouldn't do is have a business objective which is, this is what we're going to do, but actually the people that need to deliver it don't. And this part of the objective and where it sits, I would at this point go to speak to the operations team, the management on site, and actually have those conversations. So just because we're building a HR strategy, it is going to pull on asking the people within the business what they think, what they need. Do we think we can do this? And actually then for us as HR professionals, building a strategy around that as well. So with these 4 points in mind, it then breaks down to recruitment, retention, and training. So what we've got then is the kind of baseline and the starter of what our strategy would look like for 2023. At this point, what I would be doing and what I love to do, and it's not for everyone, but I'm quite a visionary person. I'd like to kind of get pen to paper and write things down and kind of spider diagrams and all of those kind of things. I would be putting on a whiteboard or 3 whiteboards within a meeting room, recruitment, retention, and training. And at this point of writing a HR strategy, it is about reviewing what we do within those sectors and looking at, okay, recruitment, let's break it down into areas where we can look, does it need improving? Does it support the objective? Are we ready? And actually have a look and analyze each section that this is covering. It is quite cathartic. It's great to go back and go, right, that worked last year, this worked, and actually do a bit of a SWOT analysis. I would always say, and if there's time to do, is actually a SWOT analysis really does help of actually going recruitment. Okay, what's our strength in recruitment? What do we do really, really well? What's great? What do we want to keep? What's our weak points? What isn't great? Are our adverts as strong as they could be? Are we targeting the right target audience? Are we speaking to the right people? Are we getting in touch with the right people? Any opportunities? And this looks at trends. This looks at ways we can recruit. Recruiting has changed since I started too many years ago to even divulge. In recruitment, it was putting an advert or people walking into recruitment agencies which are on the high street. That isn't how it works anymore. So actually, are we ahead of the game or with the trends in terms of how we do it? And then the threats, what what is the difficulty? Is there a crisis? Is competition really high within what we're looking at? Are we looking for specialized areas of skill level and those kind of things? And actually then we can look at that SWOT analysis and truly look at recruitment and how we do it. So your adverts, do they appeal to the right people? Are they slick? Do they look as they should be? Do they represent your business? And actually, by having a look at your adverts, you can really look at kind of what it's telling people. What do your adverts say about your business? Are they placed in the right areas? There's a new recruitment drive that's going on TikTok at the moment. I'm not on TikTok. I'm definitely not cool enough to be on TikTok. But there's a one-click advert where actually a company have put an advert which is attached to a TikTok video where actually someone just clicks on this link. It automatically sends whatever their details that they're asking to the recruiter without any other details. And that's how they're doing a one-click recruitment advert. Does that work for you? Would Instagram adverts work for you? And actually having a look at those adverts, it's all about attracting the right people and the best caliber that you can get. Another one I think about on recruitment is Google. What does Google say about your business? And this is quite an interesting task if you haven't done it recently. Obviously, we have Glassdoor, which is kind of the real life kind of what our employees or ex-employees are saying. But actually, what does Google say? When you Google the business, and if you're an employee that's interested, you've Googled it, and what does it say about you? What images come up? If you go Google images about your business, what comes up? Is there any team pictures? Do you have any team pictures? Is there any kind of testimonials on there about what it's like working for you? And actually having a look at what Google says, if you were doing it as a candidate and think about as a candidate journey, you're Googling it, the candidate, it comes up, do you go, yeah, that's a business that I want to work for? And actually, how can we influence it? And that could be from a HR standpoint of actually getting some meet the teams, some videos, some photos where we can put them on Instagram, we can put them on our website of actually meet the team. This is their story. I'm a big fan of this is my story, especially for businesses where they're able to kind of grow within there and start kind of at very low level and grow up. Hospitality, retail is really, really good for that. And actually most manufacturing is as well. If actually people can go, I started here. One of my clients started in a manufacturing business as an engineer and he's now the MD, then actually that's a great story. But does anyone know that? Because what that shows the employees or potential employees is there's room for progression, there's focus on progression, and people stay. And if you see that people stay, it must be a good business to work for. And then what's your recruitment process? The recruitment process is the first impression that the employees or potential employees are going to have of you. How is it communicated? Is it slick? Do we turn up? Do we look professional when we are turning up? And actually, do we know exactly what meetings are happening? Is there an actual process? i.e., the first stage is with HR, the second stage is with potential line manager, the third stage is director sign off. If that is outlined, then it's always nice to say that to the candidate so they know that if they are successful, it's a 3-stage process. But also within that recruitment process is then making sure that we are then quick with the offers. If someone is looking, the likelihood of them just looking at your place is not very likely. So actually, let's make sure that when we've said we want somewhere, you've got to sell it to them as well. So we've said we want someone, we want them to join the business. Let's get that advert out. And actually within that reviewing of your process, if your adverts say what you want them to say, they're exactly on brand, they have everything you want. Google, you've got your cultures outlined, you've got everything that kind of the positive things that your business does. Your recruitment is slick, the offers go out. Actually, then recruitment becomes a really slick process. One of the longest processes and procedures within HR, I find, is recruitment, because you're constantly waiting on other people and building. But actually, if you've got all of this already done, then recruitment, we can go pretty quickly. And actually with the adverts, if they're written or we have a framework for them, then actually we can support, going back to that objective again, of making sure the right people in the right places. Also, business objectives change. And as much as kind of we're going to be wanting to be efficient, profitable, that's what we want, right? Most businesses of 2023 want a non-COVID year that's profitable and that's successful and efficient. So actually, if we then, a business might have the opportunity to launch a new product, to open a new site, to get a shop front, whatever it might be. If our recruitment process is absolutely set and slick, then we can, as a HR team, we can move pretty quickly on that. So with a streamlined recruitment and onboarding process, HR is more efficient and the employee journey is then more positive. And remember, that employee journey with you starts from that first interview. We all can sit here and say we remember our first interview with our current employers or with previous employers, or we've been for a first interview for another role where we've actually turned it down because we were just, that's not their business for me. So making sure that your recruitment process reflects your culture as well is really, really important. So recruitment, when doing the HR strategy, just to bring it back, it's about analysing on that whiteboard, whatever way kind of you like to think about things, and putting all that detail of, okay, actually our adverts, we've done that this year, they're great. That doesn't need to be a part of the strategy. But actually, does our recruitment process, are we as slick as we should? Is our onboarding as slick as it should be? And actually that can be part of then the recruitment strategy, and part of our HR strategy is making a slick recruitment and onboarding strategy for the business. We then go to retention. So continuing on that topic of retention, as I said, retention of your team starts on day one. You've invested in recruiting these people. And as much as we forget that there is a cost, obviously, if you're using a recruitment agency, there's an obvious cost, but actually it takes your time. It takes your team's time to go through these recruitment processes. So from day one, we need to make sure that we're retaining these people. When looking at retention, I think one thing I would suggest, and I'm quite keen to do, and actually for a few of my clients right now, I'm busy writing engagement surveys. And one, I think for some sectors, it's a great time of year to do an engagement survey. For some, it's not quite. So for example, retail, we won't get an engagement survey out yet because we're bang smack in January sales. So they are still pushing. So they've been pushing since November, since Black Friday, going into Christmas, going into January. So actually we'll give, what I would do is kind of going into kind of the spring. So March, April, I'd have a look at doing an engagement survey then. For hospitality, it's a great time to do it for kind of anyone that's had that Christmas break. So your professional services, all of those kind of industries, actually, if they've had their Christmas break, we've come back into the new year, actually let's get a survey out now and let's get some opinions from the employees. Having an engagement survey can be on your strategy in terms of how often and how much you want to deliver it. Knowing what your employees want and what the teams want is crucial. I would always say that part of my job within HR is to be voice of the people. And that's kind of why I joined and why I wanted to get into HR. I wanted to help people, wanted to protect people, and I also wanted to make sure that they had a voice. So the more we know from our employees, the better we're able to retain them, the better we're able to train them, and the better we're able to engage them. So actually have an engagement survey, I think it's really useful. I'm going to caveat that right now by saying there's no point thinking about introducing an engagement survey if you're not going to do anything about it. And what I mean by that, there's no point sending a survey to your employees if you're not going to respond to it, i.e. there's no follow-up. Engagement surveys need a follow-up, and whether that's, okay, these are the things we're going to consider, these are the things we're going to look at, these are the things that at this time we can't, but we will keep it in mind for. The employees need to know that they've given their opinion and it's been heard. Otherwise, if you don't follow up and you don't respond, you might as well have not done it. So if you work for a business where senior management would engage with looking at that data, looking at the response, considering kind of opinions, and they want to have those opinions, I strongly recommend doing an engagement survey. If your business doesn't, I'd maybe steer clear. So in terms of points to consider on retention is a really, really big topic because you're talking about what people want. It's tricky at the moment because, as I said at the top of this call, it is very much an employee's market, i.e. the cost of living crisis. We all want to be paid more, right? Because all of our bills have gone up, all of our spends got our kind of day-to-day spending, with it petrol, whether it's shopping, whatever it might be. We all want that. We all want to know what our employers can do more for us. And actually that's really difficult because we're also off the back of 2.5, some would say 3 years of COVID. So businesses have been on a back foot for quite a while, and they've had to change, and they've had to adapt, and they've had to amend, and they've had to think of a completely new way of working. I have some clients that have gone completely remote, so they've got rid of their office and everyone works remote now. So actually the way they engage in their employees, the way that they retain their employees has changed completely from one year to the next. So actually retention needs, it is a big topic of conversation. And again, going back to my whiteboard piece of paper on the wall, actually there's quite a few consideration points. But when looking at retention, if you're writing a HR strategy for your business, think about the circumstances of the employees. Where do they work? How do we engage with them? How do we communicate with them? Because actually that will really affect our retention piece. So some points to consider just on in terms of retention are that employee. So the employees arrived on their first day. Are we prepared? Do they have a laptop? Do they have a warm welcome? Is there a welcome email sent across to the business where you're walking in and actually you open your email and you've got loads of messages from people, not that you know who they are, but saying it's great to have you on board, etc. That employee journey starts on that first day. One thing I will say about working for Jamie Oliver, that first day impression was incredible. So anyone that worked in head office got a branded Jamie Oliver box that had it had a laptop in, it had a pen, it had a piece of paper, had an apron, because obviously, and also it had a water bottle. And actually that was just sat on my desk waiting for when I arrived. So it felt like you were getting a present on your first day. And actually that was scalable because it was part of my team's job to make sure that happened. But whether it's actually everyone gets a pen and a pad of paper, everyone gets a water bottle, people gets a cookie sent to their house, whatever it might be, actually think about how welcome that employee feels on their first day. And do we do enough? And that's what this strategy is about. Do we do enough to make sure that that onboarding journey is slick and people feel as welcome as they should feel? The importance of communication. I think when thinking about retention, you also need to think about the employee's voice. Do they have an opportunity to have a voice? And retention can be with actually the introduction of one-to-ones, of appraisals, of 360 feedback, of team meetings, company meetings, daily stand-ups, whatever they look like. Actually, do our employees know what HR are working on? Do they know that this is what's going on? Is there regular updates? And actually there are parts of that communication piece that HR should be owning. I did have with Jamie's, I had a communications officer that worked with me, and that was just to make sure that new starters, all of those kind of things were communicated. But actually, can we get better at that? And I think the way we communicate's changed so much in the last 3 years. The fact that, we're all sat on Google Meets now, you would have asked me back then and I wouldn't have used Google Meets. I would have just got everyone into an office. So this way of learning, this way of communicating has changed so much that actually, do we utilize it enough? But also on the other hand, do we over communicate? A business I'm in today, they use GChat a lot, and actually they're reviewing it, and they're stopping some of the chats because people will create chats for the sake of creating chats, and that's when everyone was at home. We're now back in the office a little bit more, and actually, do we need all of these chats constantly pinging? And actually, is that a distraction? And actually thinking about that, those kind of questions are also ones that you can ask within your engagement survey as well. So the importance of communication, people know what's going on in the business, they know what the drive of the business, they know what their career path looks like, people will be engaged. But also how we communicate is how our culture is formed as well. Positive communication, how much we share, that integrity part, but also that trust part as well, and fairness. If we're communicating how we're showing that we are, and it's easy to say, we trust all of our employees, we're fair, we treat everyone fairly. Actually, let's make sure that people know how we do that. It's the same when we're thinking on communication of incentives. It's great to have all of these employee incentives, and there's all of these online platforms, but actually, do they know? And should we work on making sure that that communication is slicker of our benefits? Do we promote them enough? We then go on to progression and development. That is again knowing where your journey is going, knowing that there is a clear career path for you. And it doesn't necessarily need to be formal appraisals. Some businesses, they absolutely work and absolutely love them. Some businesses hate the word appraisal and it won't happen, and they don't agree with them or agree with the concept. But actually, people need to know where they're going. And that's from middle management the whole way up. I need to know where my career lies within this business. And if I can't see that, then that's not going to leave me with, I'm staying here for a long time. That goes back, and this kind of thing supports also that recruitment piece. If you really do promote within, if it's a business where you focus on apprentices and you've got that great apprentice story where they started as a 16-year-old apprentice and now they're a director within your business, actually let's shout about that. Let's make sure people know about that. And actually, we need to tell those stories more within our business to make sure people do. Remember, the bigger you get as a business, the more chance that you lose those really great stories of how people have grown within the business. But a clear progression and development route can really support your retention. And then what benefits do you offer? This is a really tricky one at the moment. And when I wrote this on there, I thought there's probably going to be some questions in regards to we haven't got the budget, or benefits are quite tricky. We need to focus on profitability. But there are some real things that HR can do to maybe look at some incentives that aren't going to cost the earth. And I'm not saying that they won't cost at all, but actually it's worth just considering. So a couple of things could be just a birthday day off. They don't work on their birthday, and actually that gets us an additional holiday. An extra holiday for years of service. Not only does that support your retention, it's a benefit that actually people go, oh, okay, if I work here, then people want more money and more time off. So actually, let's have a look at how we can do that. Social activities, looking at introducing a social committee. It might be that actually, there isn't a want from senior leadership team. That's not a focus for them, but actually that's what the employees would like to see more of those social. And I think coming out of COVID, where we were all stuck in our houses, there was a need where people wanted to get that kind of work-life balance in terms of having a few drinks after work, or having lunch with colleagues, and actually having that break. So actually creating lunch clubs, creating those let's go for a walk, or a running club at the end of the working day, or a yoga at lunch, whatever it might be. Actually, they really do have an impact, and it could be a one-off cost, but some of these don't cost anything. Having a walking club at lunchtime, where you have, one of the ideas is actually you go out and you have a list of things which you have to find to take photos of, and you send it through. But actually you have to be out, you have to be logged off and off your screen for an hour, and that's just making sure people are taking their lunch break. It supports retention, but also it shows that you care about their well-being, and that's absolutely integral in terms of making sure that we retain people. Looking at things like mental health, the Mental Health Awareness Month. So that's the 1st of May. This is a really great opportunity from a HR standpoint of actually looking at what we can do to engage with our employees, to show that we are aware that it's a tricky year. It's been a tricky few years, but actually, what can we do to support that? And whether that's well-being Wednesdays of there's a coffee morning, whether that's introducing some lunch and learn of some kind of how to time management techniques, whatever that might be. One thing that I know is really supported and employees have really enjoyed is actually getting a financial advisor in. And actually that's just to help people with how to budget, what they're entitled to. And actually it could be that, you know, you have an accountancy firm that have a finance advisor that can spend a day, you can book appointments for your team, but actually it just identifies that it's tough out there, and we respect and understand that, but we will try to do what we can to help. Within that mental health month also, there's loads of blogs that you can get. We will be writing some within Bespoke HR as well. So if you want some content, then please do let us know. But having challenges, getting people out of the house more, making sure that people are okay, and getting more of a kind of communication going about actually how are we. One of my clients, which I'm actually sat in today, and I'm sure they're going to watch this recording, they actually did a cookbook. So they do a lunch club, and actually everyone was making their lunch, or they did cook-alongs, and actually they created a cookbook at the end. Something that they then have, which is an amazing thing, which they have from doing the Mental Health Awareness Month within lockdown. And it will be something that they will be able to keep. So I think in terms of benefits, it's not necessarily people, you know, pay rises, bonuses, all of those things. Actually try and think outside the box. What more could we do? What more can we appreciate? And actually, if there is certain things which you know is the elephant in the room, or people are really struggling with the hours that they work, or getting time away from the laptop, or whatever it might be, actually let's try and think and encourage of those little well-being points that actually then support retention. Retention is making sure that people are happy and comfortable within their working environment, and it's HR's job to kind of support and direct that as well. Retention not only supports business productivity and efficiencies, but also promotes that positive culture. If we have retention, then recruitment hopefully isn't as high as it should be. But when recruitment comes along, it's not we're constantly recruiting. Actually, we're looking for it. You're never going to keep every employee within your business, but actually when you want to keep people want to leave. If they do leave, people want to leave going, that's a great business to work for. And your HR strategy should be always around making sure that that's what people will think. So going back to my spider diagram and thinking about that business objective which we've got, which is increasing profitability, increasing spend per head, reducing operational expenses. The spend per head, by retaining your people, you've got your most experienced people working for you, which means you can focus on making sure that you're retaining them and you're keeping your experts within your business. Therefore, for this business, increasing spend per head is increased knowledge, increase awareness. They are the experts, then hopefully that will support this objective. So for me, retention is going to be really, really key. Training's a difficult one so it's obviously the biggest entity to a certain extent, but actually for me, training needs working with line managers to work out exactly what we want to deliver. There is no point delivering training for the sake of training and ticking a box. Actually, we want to make sure that we are delivering effective and efficient training. Training takes time out of people's diaries. It takes time out of people who are writing it to create it, and actually we need to make sure that people benefit from it as well. So hopefully you are from today. But the training in terms of a business objective, for me, training is making sure that people know what's expected of them. So that's within their day-to-day roles. Their day-to-day role training, the line managers should be responsible in ensuring that their teams know what they need to do on a day-to-day basis. However, for training bigger picture of kind of business objectives, looking at leadership, those kind of things, yes, HR should be supporting the business in creating what that leadership program would look like. So within this business objective, just thinking and kind of using this real life example, the training topics that I would take from this would be to understand business costs and efficiency. So actually, could that be an hour session where we have, and it's not necessarily delivered by HR, it's delivered by our financial controller or our operations director, of actually going through, setting the session up where the managers are there to understand what a business cost is. It could be how to read a P&L and a balance sheet, and then working out how they can be efficient. And actually, as much as we can assume people know, let's make sure they know. And that's what training will do. Upselling and enhancing the customer experience is another one that I would take from this objective, and that's increasing spend per head. Upselling is a word that some people will like, some people won't, but actually it is enhancing that customer experience. And that is at every level. So that's a training that we can roll out across the group. How do we think about it? How do we want to deliver that? And actually working with operations, I would suggest that that's when the training is kind of driven and created, working with the people who are on the front line and delivering this experience. And then the one that HR absolutely will take is the managing people and leadership. The reason I identified this one within this objective is purely because actually people need to be managing. Everything about this is managing people, because we're managing efficiencies, which is making sure that everyone is doing the process as slick as they possibly can. They're managing people to increase spend per head, because as a GM or general manager of a restaurant, for example, they won't necessarily be taking the orders and doing all of those kind of things. So they're relying on their team to do that. So managing people is getting the best out of people, and also being a successful leader as well. So that managing people and leadership, it can be whether it's making sure we've got the right people in the right place. And we might not have at the moment. And actually, we might have some weak links within our business that actually we do need to consider how we move forward with that. Obviously, that's something that we can support from Bespoke point of view, but actually we need to make sure that people are identifying who the right people within their teams are at an early stage, so we're not leaving it too long as well. Managing people and leadership, I think, is one of those topics within training that can always be refreshed. You can always learn more, and that's because people's priorities change, the employee journeys change, how employees react to what employees want. Everything changes so much that actually that managing people and leadership, I think, always should be within the strategy of delivery. So they're the three training topics which I would suggest with this business objective in mind. But again, that white paper, looking at your training topics, what do you offer? Or actually, if you don't have a training plan, if you don't have a career path plan, actually, what training could we introduce? What are the weak points within the business? And that's working with kind of heads of department or leaders to understand, what do they need us to work with? What for them is their area where it's just not happening? And then we can build that training program from there. So I'm doing okay for time, so great. In terms of then what I would now do in terms of that proposed HR strategy and objective, thinking back to the objective, thinking back to our broken down into 3 points: recruit, retain, and train. So we've gone through recruitment, we've had a look at it, we've gone, right, our adverts are strong, but actually we need to look at more of X, Y, or Z. And we've got our kind of highlighted points on our lovely spider diagram, which I've got, stuck on the wall. These are the areas of recruitment we should be focusing on to support this business objective. We've done the same with retention, and we've done the same with training. So that's exactly what I did for this business. And between myself and the HR officer, we went through all of that, and I asked her to go through and go, right, what's really good, what's not great, and all of those kind of things. And this is the proposed HR strategy and objectives, which we're in draft. And it's really important that I explain that this is the draft, because there's still next steps before we've even got to go live. But the HR strategy that is in our draft and what we're working on at the moment, just so you can kind of see where kind of the journey gets to, is The strategy for this business would be to recruit, retain and train, to become employer of choice in the industry through focused retention and investment in training and development. That training piece, those 3 topics are a big part of what the business needs in terms of increasing profitability, increasing efficiencies, looking at operating expenses. So we felt that that was a key element to what we were doing. But with recruitment and retention, we've got some great people in that business. We need to keep them, but also we need to strengthen them. So actually there is still that need to recruit. With hospitality especially and retail, it's quite a transient business. You've got lots of people, our retention, our turnover figures are, within the news, it's, all talked about, that people move around within those sectors and within the customer service sectors. So actually we always need to have a recruitment strategy that supports it as well. So what we looked at for this business is we looked at their retention figures, and we went for the last 2 years, and it was around, off the top of my head, I think it was around 70 to 72%, and that was a figure they were able to pull from their HR system. And we decided that actually we'd set a figure for us in terms of really focusing on that retention, and we set that figure at 80%. This could be challenged by the MD. I'm sure he's going to want to push it more because it means he's losing 20% of his workforce. But I think we always have that natural leave. You always have those kind of those roles that and those people that naturally move on or move home or whatever it might be. But that's the figure that the HR officer was really comfortable with, and so was the operations director. Development of a progression, career footpath and leadership program to support and develop our talent. And that's why that training and development was a key point of the strategy, because actually we want people to know where they are going within the business, what the opportunity is, but also people are going to move on. And when you're a small business, which this business is, in terms of your leadership roles, they are few and far between. So actually when you get to a certain level, there is, unless the business grows and they open new sites, actually there is a point where people will stop. For some people that's great, but others, they want to keep developing, they want to go into those kind of operations roles or whatever it might be. So actually we need to have a succession plan in place that makes sure that we're backfilling and that we've got people moving up, that actually we should only be then recruiting at very junior level, and we're looking at that kind of apprenticeship level. So then actually we've got people coming into junior roles, into senior, into management, and then into leadership. So that was a focus that they currently don't have in the business that they want to develop within 2023. The careers page, looking at that, it can be better. The links weren't working when we were trialing it. We had a look when we were doing our kind of, our SWOT analysis, and actually it can get better. But also there are recruitment events, there's apprenticeship events, there's hospitality events. There's all of these kind of things that actually, in terms of brand awareness, actually let's get out there. Let's go and speak to people. Let's go and find out where people are looking, and actually by talking to people and getting out there, do you know where people are looking for jobs, what platforms are they using, etc., etc. Quarterly staff survey was really important for them, and I'm a as you can probably tell, I'm a big advocate for it as well. Give the employees a voice, and then we can do something about it. And actually hopefully by doing it quarterly, any niggles or any changes we can capture, and we can also make sure that we're tailoring our questions on making sure that we're covering that part of the year. It's, as I said at the top, it's really important on your timing of those engagement surveys. For example, we're not going to send one out right at the beginning of the busy period when they're going, or right at the end, because everyone's a little bit tired and needs a little bit of a break. So asking their feedback right then actually is probably not going to be conducive. But actually let people just reflect, take some time, and then actually let's come back and we can then really push it if we're going to do better. It is HR's job to make sure that there is feedback on that. And as I said, don't do them if we can't feedback, but it's very much HR's job to feedback on those surveys. Continue to review the business. They were pleased with their benefits, they're pleased with what they offer, but actually they want to make sure that they review. And that's put on this strategy. Will it continue into the objectives? I'm not sure, because actually that's something that we should be doing naturally, but it was something that they wanted to make sure that they knew that that's what we wanted to kind of push ourselves to do, and very much put it on the agenda. And then recruit international. There is an opportunity to recruit with sponsorship, and obviously with the new sponsorship program, with Brexit and kind of attracting our Europeans. Actually having that program in place enables us to just go a little bit further. The business is internationally focused, so actually then we can go to the country of origin where the concept came from and actually really promote it there, where actually the language which they speak would work within the business, because we naturally have a lot of people with the same background. So international sponsorship program is something that is key for them in terms of looking at chefs, looking at people that are bringing over, and continuing making sure that we're identifying that recruitment crisis and what we're doing about it as well. So there's our 6 points. I would suggest that this will probably go down to 4. I think those 2 at the bottom are kind of note to self, and we are going to continue to do. Our strategy, I would say, is very much what we're going to do more of, what we're going to do better, what are we going to do to improve. And I think continuing to review, continuing to do certain, obviously we have to, but I think the top 4 is exactly what we should be doing in terms of improving, creating and identifying an area within the business that needs focus as well. So what happens now, I would take that and present it to the MD, present it to the operations director. We have spoken to the operations director first because it's good to get her take, but actually present those objectives to senior management. And that's just to see what their thoughts are, to make sure it's in line. But actually, if we've considered that objective, the business objective, the whole way through, they might just want to know the context, the reason why. Actually go onto our careers page, it's not as good, these are the ones, and actually go and have a look at your competition, go on their websites, go on how they're doing things, consider the one-click recruitment, all of those things. Actually, what are our competitors doing and could we get better? And I'm not saying go and copy it, I'm just saying take some ideas, take some inspiration, and then agree on timelines. Those objectives have delivery, so the one that had the delivery is a quarterly staff survey, but actually when are we going to do these things? And timing within HR is crucial. So for example, if we know that we're about to launch a product, the product is going to go live in July, that means that we're actually going to increase our teams. We need more customer service agents, for example, or we need more people to support, or back end or administrators. Actually, then for me, I would look at that recruitment piece, that kind of looking at our adverts, making sure our onboarding, that as our strategy, that's our first objective, and that's our first Q1. So if I'm managing a team, or or it's my objective and I'm running with it, I would present to the board or to the stakeholder shareholders, this is going to be broken down, and I'm going to do that as my first objective, that as my second, and that as my third. And that's just in line with making sure that we're supporting the business on its journey throughout the year as well. I think for this year, efficiency is going to be the big focus, making sure we're profitable, making sure we're efficient, and making sure we're successful. And that's what we need to do. But HR can really support this. So just for me to wrap it up and just go back. We identified within the business objective, just to go back to that business objective, which needs to be the key part of building your strategy. Increase restaurant profitability. What we've identified is the right people in the right place, which is a recruitment and retention focus. The increase of spend per head becomes a training and a retention piece. And then the reducing operating expenses is a training focus. So that's how we go back to our senior teams and go, this is what we would like to share with you. This is what we'd like to look at. And this is what we've gone and analysed, we've looked at, we've reviewed, and this is what we suggest. Thank you so much. I'm really aware that for 50 minutes or 55 minutes I have spoken at you. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope it was useful.